Your phone just pinged a satellite. It does that roughly 50 times a day. Every time you check a map, request a ride, use contactless payment, or let your weather app update, a signal travels 17,000 miles to orbit, bounces off a machine the size of a kitchen table moving at 17,000 miles per hour, and comes back. The whole thing takes a fraction of a second. You never think about it. Nobody does. There are over 9,000 active satellites in low Earth orbit right now. They track storms, relay internet to rural villages, guide ambulances to the right address, and synchronize the clocks that keep banking systems from collapsing. They are, quietly and invisibly, part of almost everything you do. And according to a team of researchers at Princeton University and the University of British Columbia, the entire system is 2.8 days from a catastrophic collision. Not years, not months, days. They built something called the crash clock. CRASH stands for Collision Realization and Significant Harm. It measures how long it would take for a debris-generating collision to occur if satellite operators suddenly lost the ability to steer their spacecraft out of each other's way. In 2018, the crash clock stood at 121 days, roughly 4 months. Enough time to identify a problem, restore communications, upload new commands, fix whatever went wrong. 4 months of margin. That was before the mega-constellations arrived. Between 2019 and 2025, the number of objects in low Earth orbit nearly doubled, from around 13,700 to over 24,000. SpaceX alone has launched more than 7,000 Starlink satellites. OneWeb, Amazon's Kuiper, and a growing number of Chinese, European, and Indian operators have added thousands more, and every single one of them shares the same narrow band of orbital space, moving in different directions at different speeds, crossing paths constantly. Here's the number that stopped me cold. Across all mega-constellations in low Earth orbit, a close approach, defined as 2 satellites passing within 1 kilometer of each other, happens once every 22 seconds. For Starlink alone, it happens every 11 minutes. That's not a projection. That's the measured rate as of June 2025. Every 22 seconds, 2 objects moving at combined closing speeds that can exceed 30,000 miles per hour pass within a kilometer of each other. The only thing preventing a collision is software, ground-based tracking, automated commands uploaded in real time, a system that works with zero margin for error every 22 seconds, around the clock, forever. Now imagine that system goes offline. Not because of a cyber attack, not because someone made a mistake, because of the sun. The most likely trigger for a crash clock scenario is a severe solar storm. In May 2024, the strongest geomagnetic storm in over 20 years slammed into Earth's magnetosphere. It was classified G5, the highest category. It produced auroras visible from Florida. But beyond the pretty lights, it caused something far more dangerous. Satellites across low Earth orbit experienced chaotic position shifts. Tracking data became unreliable. Operators lost accurate awareness of where their spacecraft were relative to everything else. The Constellation Maneuver System didn't fail, but it stuttered. And in a system where close approaches happen every 22 seconds, a stutter can be fatal. In January 2026, Earth was hit by the strongest solar radiation storm since the Halloween storms of 2003. Rated S4, 1 step below the maximum, ISS astronauts sheltered in the most heavily shielded modules. Airlines rerouted polar flights. Satellite operators braced for disruption. The infrastructure survived. But the researchers behind the crash clock specifically cite storms like these as the kind of event that could disable collision avoidance long enough for the clock to run out. 2.8 days. That's all the time there is now. The consequences of a single catastrophic collision in low Earth orbit go far beyond 2 destroyed satellites. At orbital velocities, a collision between 2 objects creates thousands of fragments. Each fragment becomes a new projectile. Each projectile threatens every other satellite in a similar orbit. The International Space Station has executed over 40 debris avoidance maneuvers since it launched, and the debris environment today is worse than at any point during those years. There's a term for what happens when collisions start feeding themselves: Kessler Syndrome, named after NASA scientist Donald Kessler, who predicted in 1978 that at a certain density of objects in orbit, collisions would generate debris faster than it could be removed, creating a chain reaction that could make entire orbital bands unusable. Not for years, for centuries. The math behind it is simple. Two satellites collide. They produce 2,000 fragments. Each fragment crosses the path of other satellites. Some of those get hit. Each hit produces hundreds more fragments. Within a decade, an entire altitude band becomes a cloud of shrapnel moving at bullet speed in every direction. Nothing survives in it. Nothing can be launched through it safely. We're not there yet, but the crash clock tells us something chilling about how fast we could get there. One bad storm, one system failure, one 72-hour window where operators can't command their satellites, and the cascade begins. What does that look like on the ground? Start with GPS. 31 satellites in medium Earth orbit provide positioning data to 3 billion devices worldwide. Military operations depend on it. Emergency services depend on it. In May 2024, a geomagnetic storm disrupted precision agriculture equipment across the American Midwest, costing farmers an estimated $500 million because their GPS-guided tractors couldn't hold a straight line. That was a temporary glitch from one storm. Now imagine the satellites themselves starting to break apart. Next, lose weather forecasting. The satellites that feed data to every forecast model you check, NOAA's GOES fleet, ESA's Sentinel constellation, NASA's Aqua, Terra, and Aura, operate in the same crowded orbital space. Those three NASA climate satellites have already been forced to dodge debris at least 32 times since 2005. Some of those maneuvers corrupted the scientific data they were collecting. Every dodge burns irreplaceable fuel and shortens the satellite's operational life. One study estimates the total economic impact of space debris on the satellite industry between 2025 and 2035 at up to $42 billion. Then there's the part nobody wants to talk about: telecommunications, internet, financial transactions. Modern banking relies on satellite synchronized timing to validate trades and prevent fraud. The stock market doesn't work without precise satellite-provided time signals. Neither do power grids, which use the same timing data to balance load across regions. The researchers chose their words carefully. They described the mega-constellation system as a house of cards, not because it's poorly built, because it's inherently fragile. It works perfectly right up until the moment it doesn't. And when a single card falls, the structure doesn't degrade gracefully, it collapses. What's being done? Some things. The European Space Agency is developing debris removal missions. ClearSpace, a Swiss company, is planning to grab a defunct payload adapter out of orbit using a robotic arm. That's one piece of debris. There are 140 million others larger than 1 millimeter. Regulations exist that require satellite operators to deorbit their spacecraft within 25 years of end of life. But compliance is inconsistent and enforcement is almost non-existent. SpaceX's Starlink satellites are designed to deorbit within 5 years, and most do, but not all. And the satellites are only part of the problem. Spent rocket stages, lens caps, paint flakes, bolts, shrapnel from past collisions, the orbit is full of objects nobody owns, nobody controls, and nobody is responsible for removing. Here's the connection that ties this back to you. Just weeks ago, a Chinese spacecraft passed within 655 feet of a Starlink satellite. That's less than the length of 2 football fields. At orbital velocities, the closing speed between those two objects would have given ground controllers roughly 1 second of additional warning before impact. 1 second between a near miss and a debris cloud that could trigger the cascade. The 2.8-day clock doesn't run constantly. It starts when something goes wrong. A solar storm, a cyber attack on ground infrastructure, a geopolitical event that disrupts the international cooperation satellite operators depend on to share tracking data. But the clock itself, the margin of safety, the buffer between us and catastrophe, has been shrinking every year since the mega-constellations began launching. 121 days in 2018, 2.8 days now. The math is headed in one direction. The researchers didn't propose shutting down mega-constellations. They didn't call for a moratorium on launches. What they said was simpler and more unsettling. We need to start treating low Earth orbit the way we treat other shared environments, as something that can be degraded beyond recovery if we don't manage it. And right now, we're not managing it, we're just hoping the software keeps working. Aaron Boley, one of the study's co-authors, put it this way: the crash clock is a statistical measure of how much or how little room there is for error. And the answer, right now, is almost none. The next major solar storm will be the test, not of whether our satellites can survive the radiation, They can. But of whether the system we've built, the tracking, the commanding, the coordination between thousands of operators in dozens of countries, can hold itself together long enough to keep 9,000 machines from crashing into each other at 17,000 miles per hour. If it can, we won't even notice. If it can't, you'll know within 72 hours, because your phone will stop finding you. What do you think the right number is? How many satellites is too many? Should there be a cap? Or do the benefits of global internet, precision farming, and weather forecasting outweigh the risk of losing it all at once? That's not a rhetorical question. It's one the people launching these satellites haven't answered yet. I'd like to hear your answer.